People of YouTube, today you should know two things. First, I'm sick.
I'm sick.
Secondly, we're going over the intro music for my Van Halen video. In that Van Halen video, which I will link up here, you can click on it, I go over the history of this guitar, or what I know about it. It was made by ESP back in the day, so you can watch that video if you haven't seen that already. But this is not an actual Van Halen tune, okay? So if that's what you're expecting, this is not the video for you. This is a tune that I wrote that was roughly inspired by Van Halen because of this guitar, right? So that's what I'm going over today. If you haven't seen that video, I'm going to still play the intro track for you on this one so you have a clue what I'm even talking about. So if you've already watched that video and you just want to skip to the lesson, that's great. There'll be time codes down the bottom. You can just skip right ahead to the lesson portion. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then just stay tuned because I'm going to play that whole clip right now. Okay, so before we get started with the actual lesson, I think it's important that you know how I'm getting my tone. It's not exactly a Van Halen tone. I understand that. I don't have, an old Marshall or something like that to go off of, but I'll show you how I was getting my tone. I was going through this guitar, obviously, and people have been asking what this pickup is. I do not know. It's a Seymour Duncan, obviously, it says it on there, but I just don't know. Some people have speculated that it's a JB, a Seymour Duncan JB. I don't know. And it just sounds good, and I just haven't taken it out to see. So there's that. This guitar, then I'm running it through a small pedal board down here, but the only pedal used in the pedal board is this MXR EVH Phase 90. If you wanted to sound exactly like Van Halen, then technically you would use an original Phase 90, like an MXR Phase 90. Pretty sure it was the orange one, right? So if you wanted to sound official, you would do that. But, we love the stripes, obviously. And so, I fell victim to marketing.
We all do.
So from the guitar to the pedal, and then from there I run into a small interface here that I'll get a picture of and show you, but it's a small Focusrite 2 input interface, and from there I plug directly into my computer and I record everything in Studio One, and I use a plugin by Neural DSP, and it is the Archetype Plenty. So this is not going to be a review or a tutorial on how to use that plugin. I'm sure most of you already know how it works. but I will show you at least how I'm getting my tones within the plugin. So let's take a look. Okay, so once I come out of the interface and go to Studio One, I have a lot of tracks open right here, but they're all kind of the same thing. Some are vocals, some are guitar, but in this case, we're looking at this guitar. And what I have is the Neural DSP Archetype Plenty plugin. Okay, if you're not familiar with this, then I highly encourage you to, check some of it out. They make some really cool stuff. I use this one a lot. I use the Corey Wong version of this a lot. They have some excellent ones. I believe this is the first archetype they come out with. Archetype. Man, I'm from the South. I don't know what that's. Archetype. That feels right. Archetype sounds like something else. Archetype. Anyway. So this is not how to work this app or anything, but it'll give you an overview. So this first slot right here is a couple pedals. Then right here you have, so if you go to default, you have a clean amp, a rhythm amp, and a lead amp. Obviously you can change all of these things around, right? Change all your tones. You can even put it in standby mode if you want, all that kind of stuff, right? So you can do all sorts of things. A bright switch. You have an EQ. If you want to dial it in even more than what you can do on this, you can get very specific. So from here, we go here and we have a speaker cabinet. You can change what these mics are, right? So this is just what it was set up as. This is a Ribbon 160 right here, the Dynamic 57. And you can change all of this, right? The distance from the speaker, where it's at on the speaker, all of that affects the tone. At the very end, you have delay and reverb. For my song, I had found that this sounded somewhat like Van Halen to me. It is using I made this little profile here, this preset. It is on the lead amp, and I've got the bright switch engaged. Gain isn't all the way up, it gets pretty gainy, but that's where that's at there. On the front, on the rhythm parts, I didn't have any of this going. And on the rhythm parts, I did have the reverb going. Okay? I feel like a lot of those early Van Halen albums had a lot of reverb. The only thing I changed on the lead parts is I added this overdrive. So you can see the gain is still not very high, but it adds just enough, since it's in front of the amp, technically, going by this chain. It is pushing the amp a little harder.
Left, right, it down.
Okay, so for the very beginning, when I'm showing the guitar case, what I'm playing there is really simple. It is on the D string, I'm playing the 7th fret, G string, 4th fret, and then on the B string, I'm playing the 5th fret. Sounds like this. And I'm just hitting all those together. And this part gets a little more challenging. The stretch is just harder. So you can play that like this and it's fairly comfortable. But if you put your 3rd finger up here, it's a bit more of a stretch. But I do that so I can get this note. So right there, I put my pinky on the B string at the 7th fret. And I'm laying down my 1st finger here on the 4th fret. So when I do that, I get this. Right? So that's how I'm getting that right there. I think I only do that once during the whole intro or something, but that's how I'm doing that. So it's a bit more of a stretch, but it's worth it if you want to do that little lick there. The next is the same thing. It's right here. 7th fret on the D, 4th fret on the G, 4th fret on the B string. So I'm just laying this 1st finger down. And during all that, the bass is changing from an F sharp on the first one. When I go to the next chord, it's hitting a B. So when we get to the rhythmic part of the intro, it is the same chords right here that I'm hitting. And then with my right hand, I'm doing this pattern. right? So I use my finger here. I do hybrid picking there. So the first time is down, and then it starts just going up every time. So that's where it starts over. Start over. Right? So you can just do that faster and faster. I will say it's not all about speed. It's more about the swing of it. I find that it helps to stress the one that I'm plucking. I think one thing I take from Eddie and apply it to my playing some today is his sense of swing, so that it just doesn't sound the same if it's straight. Right? It just sounds better if it's... Right? So, keep that in mind. On to the next part. So the rhythm for this track, once it gets into the main song where the full band is going, it's very simple, okay? F sharp minor. And this whole thing started because I was inspired by like a Hot for Teacher type of thing, but I wanted to slow it down and give it more of a swing like some of their other songs. But as we all know, like a Hot for Teacher type thing, right? The whole thing. So F sharp minor is where this whole thing starts. So right there, I drop down to an E. You could play the whole chord, but I don't, because I grab those. I hit the E, and then this E right here in the D string, 2nd fret, G 1st fret. So it's so you're suspending that E. So on the G string, I'm just adding the 2nd fret and going back to the 1st fret. Right? And then I slide up to the 6th fret on the A string and then play the 4th fret on the D and G. Okay, it sounds like this. So that's essentially the way I'm looking at it. Essentially the 4 chord, if you know your number system. So it's essentially the B. You can play that. You can play that instead. It's an inversion, if you will. So right. So instead of the B being at the lowest note, we have the 3rd of the chord being at the lowest note. So that is all that the rhythm section is. The next part is even more simple. I just grooved on this F sharp. Right, so I couldn't take my thumb off smoothly enough, so I usually use my thumb for all this stuff. But when I wanted to pull off to the E, I couldn't do it very smooth. So I switched just for that one moment to my 1st finger. And so that's that next part, super simple. So this next part is the solo portion of the song, and the rhythm actually, we're going to change keys, and that happens in a couple Van Halen songs. So that's one thing that I took from the band and from Eddie, is just changing that key. So we're actually going to be changing up to a D flat or C sharp, however you want to look at that. But to get there, I just essentially, that's where we're going, right? And so I play the D and the G string of all that. And instead of the full bar chord. So after that last bit, we have so the rhythm part of the solo section, super simple. We're in D flat. That's all it is, right? So I'm even just hitting the one note. I'm not doing bar chords or anything because I want the solo to be the focus. So me and the bass are just playing the single notes right there, right? Super simple. And then for the rest of the song, the rhythm is the same. We go back into that whole thing. Now let's tackle the solo. I'll try to teach it as closely as I can to what I played, but most all of that was improvised. So, I just went for a certain amount of takes, chose the best one. So I tried to go back and relearn it. So hopefully this will show you what I was at least thinking. So after that walk up, I started doing this bluesy thing. Right, you just do that forever. So I'm thinking of this whole solo bit right here as D flat, pentatonic, C sharp, whatever. So I'll just play this stuff slow and try to zoom in and let you work it out. We would be here forever if I broke down every single note. But just slow it down. You can slow it down even more and just try to figure this stuff out. Maybe one day I'll have a tab for it, but I don't know how to do that currently. So I'll try to learn. I don't know where the camera gets off. All right. So we'll do that one more time, slow. So that part is pretty simple. You just got to get it up to speed, but it's a lick I do all the time, as you'll see in a minute, because I do it later in the song. I didn't even realize that at the time, but when I went back and relearned it, I realized I used the same exact lick. So this is what that sounds like fast. Alright, when I'm coming up from that dive bomb on the low E, we're changing keys back to the original key, and I'm going to come back up on the 14th fret on the B string, which, if we're back, I'm once again thinking pentatonic in F sharp this time. So we go down on the E right here, something like that, right? So when that comes back up, I'm on the 5th of F sharp, and then this part is probably too bluesy for Eddie, but it's just what I felt at the time. So this is not exactly something he would play there, but so I come up on that. So this whole thing is the same lick, just I play it an octave lower. So that's 3 F sharps in a row. And this is that lick that's the same that I played earlier. So it's something like that. I do that lick all the time, so I'm always playing variations of it. Slow that down if you have to, and learn it. I'll try to come out with a tab one day for it to make everybody happy. So my tapping is not really in the style of Eddie. Actually, not a ton of my playing in general is in the style of Eddie. So this is just my go-to tapping lick if I had to pick one. But, you know, to me, my learning of tapping all started from Eddie. So I still throw this back to him, even though it wasn't necessarily his style of tapping. But here we go. So my left hand is just going up this F sharp minor pentatonic, right? And then my right hand is actually, if this is here, so my left hand is going up the F sharp minor pentatonic, and this finger is almost going up the pentatonic up here, but there's one note that's different. So I'll just show you what frets I'm hitting. Alright, that's what I do on every string. And to get to the next string, I actually hammer that on with my third finger here. Alright, so go ahead and hit that next note. Remember, this one's just going up the pentatonic. So you know where your next note's going to be because you're just following that outline of that pentatonic scale. Do the same thing again. This one I shift over. Alright, so this one's a bit wider. So that one I bend up. And then I end it with something like that is an F sharp. And it makes it a nice ending point because that's the key we're in. So it's something like that. I don't know exactly, like I said, I improvised it, but well, I hope my sickness did not distract you too much. I'm a total mouth breather.
Mouth breather? Yeah, you know, a dumb person.
And I hope you learned something from the video, especially things that I've picked up from Eddie, whether it be tapping in general, or the swing, keeping the swing in the song, or you know, some of the fast bits, which, once again, they're not exactly something Eddie would play. It's just stuff that I've been inspired by Eddie to come up with. If you haven't subscribed already, please consider it. Think about it. You know, I would do it. I would subscribe to my own, but you know, it doesn't count. So, but also, if you like the video, hit that like button. Right? You don't have to smash it. Don't destroy your mouse or anything. But yeah, go ahead and hit that thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next video.